Welcome back. Oh, welcome back. I was eating some popcorn. Mm, mm. And you know how that kernel get caught. What's up, y'all? Shout out. What up, though? What's Shout out to my new subscribers. I really, really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mm. Hey, like, share, subscribe, hit the like button. I cannot believe. Okay, here we go. So tonight's topic is about the New Orleans mayor, Latoya Cantrell, who's been indicted by the federal government for having not just only having an affair with her bodyguard she married, but because they say she committed $70,000 of fraud and took trips with her bodyguard. So let's get off into it. Cantrell indictment, another sad chapter in New Orleans' tragic political history. Sad, disappointed, not surprised. Now, this article is by Greg LaRose coming out of Louisiana Illuminator. Sorry, y'all, I got a cold too. I'm all stuffed up right here. Ugh. They're the first words that come to mind when reflecting on the indictment of New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell, who faces 11 felony counts on federal charges of wire fraud, obstructing justice, and lying to the grand jury. The investigation centers on how she allegedly denied and concealed her romantic relationship with Jeffrey Vapey, a member of her security detail, and used public funds to pay for their extensive travel together. Sounding like another Fonnie Willis, huh? Except she the mayor, Fonnie the district attorney. Baby, who has since resigned from the New Orleans Police Department, faces several federal charges for filing timesheets that indicated he was on the job when he was actually spending personal time with the mayor. Ooh. While it's disheartening that yet another Louisiana politician has put themselves in criminal jeopardy, it should come at no surprise. Now, that's the sad part, the fact that it shouldn't be a surprise. This is just what we do in Louisiana. Wow. The 44-page indictment is basically a synopsis of several months of investigative reporting from our partners. Their journalists obtained the publicly available security camera footage from Jackson Square. Oh, I had a ball in Jackson Square that showed Cantrell and Vapey spending extended time together at a city-owned dwelling in the Pontello apartments. The mayor has had many opportunities to justify her actions or even be contrite. She has instead painted herself as a victim, despite a mounting paper trail that points to her complicity. She faces arraignment in federal court, which she already been arraigned. That was September 10th. And political observers expect her to serve out the rest of her term that ends in January. Cantrell's indictment comes 11 years after the conviction of Ray Nagin, who accepted bribes from businessmen seeking city contracts. Nagin's indictment followed this time in office, but his offenses occurred while he led New Orleans attempt to rebound for Hurricane Katrina. His crime carried the addiction of someone else while the city was at its most vulnerable. The current mayor's downfall is disappointing for different reasons. Namely, when you consider her rapid rise from neighborhood organizer to city leader after Katrina, she led a grassroots movement to revive the stricken Broadmoor community. Her track record and straightforward style helped the Palmdale, California native overcome the outsider label some placed on this placed on her despite having lived in New Orleans since her days at Xavier. While detractors bristled at her assertive public persona, Cantrell is a very impactful politician in one-on-one settings. Insiders say she can be firm when the situation calls for it, and sometimes when it doesn't, yet she shows an empathetic side that endures her to die-hard supporters. Cantrell embraced the nickname Titi, a badge of affection used in local black families, usually given to that aunt who doesn't hesitate to tell it like it is. Even after critics weaponized the term to express their disdain for her, the mayor doubled down and made Titi part of her social media branding. Beyond the recent indictment, Cantrell is also connected to another federal investigation. See, I ain't know this. That has produced criminal charges. Electrical Inspector Randy Furl is accused of giving the mayor thousands of dollars worth of New Orleans Saint tickets, a free iPhone, and lunch in exchange for firing a city official who was investigating permit approvals for Farrell's permit approvals for Farrell's business. Only Farrell and businessman Fawad Zitton, the alleged middleman between Farrell and the mayor, were targeted in the indictment, but charges against Cantrell in this case remain a possibility. Wow. Farrell had pleaded not guilty to bribery and wire charges. Zedden, who has positioned himself as a close ally to the mayor, has already admitted his guilt in yet another federal case. What is going on down there in New Orleans? He filed a bogus insurance claim to recover damages for pricey art he said was stolen from his home. Even by Louisiana political scandal standards, the web of deceit is astonishing, and it's simply too much to wrap one's head around it at the time when the city marks the immense tragedy that unfolded 20 years ago this week. The levee failures are yet another example of public officials letting down the public trust. Wow. Mm. Now I'm going to read the article I already had. New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell indicted in a historic federal investigation. This is Atlanta Alive. She's the first mayor to face federal charges while still in office. Let me see if there's anything in there that. So her charges are conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to obstruct justice, obstruction of justice, false statements, and false declarations before a grand jury. Okay. Now, it is alleged that Cantrell and Vapey accompanied her on at least 14 out of state trips, falsely claiming she needed protection for safety concerns. These trips reported cost the city of New Orleans over $70,000, not including Cantrell's own travel expenses. The indictment also claims that Baby and Cantrell used a city owned apartment in the Pontebello building for personal use, with Baby frequently spending time there while on duty. That's why he was fired. Wow. Wait a minute. I thought I had more than that. I got to go find the damn thing. Give me a minute, y'all. Because I thought it was more than that. This cold kicking my butt, y'all. It's kicking my butt. It's right all up here in my nasal. This Obama. Pam Bondi. Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court, Donald Trump, Putin, Ukraine, SpaceX. Okay, yeah, I seen that. Okay, it is more. I thought it was. I don't know. The indictment caps a federal investigation of Cantrell, first reported by WWL Louisiana in 2022. A grand jury stated hearing the evidence from federal prosecutors February 2004 and returned an indictment last September against building inspector Randy Farrell, charging him with conspiring to bribe Cantrell with about $9,000 in gifts in 2019, including NFC Championship game tickets, a lunch at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, and a cell phone in exchange for causing the firing of a city official who had been investigating Fair for alleged fraud. Cantrell was also implicated in a 2024 indictment of her former bodyguard, Jeffrey Vappy, who allegedly had a romantic affair with Cantrell and is charged with using that relationship to defraud the New Orleans Police Department. Former Mayor Ray Nagin was under federal investigation during his time in office. So they just gonna name every black person that did something, but apparently all those trips and all that stuff cost about $70,000. All right, let's get into it. Where is my New Orleans? Here we go. All right, here we go. We're gonna do this one first. This is WWL TV.
Base in which only law enforcement officers are authorized to use it and only for law enforcement purposes.
Yes.
We have never seen the answer to that question. In fact, the Enbro lawsuit now leaves a John Doe replacing Guzman and Gant, since their fingerprints were apparently not on that
So then how can we not, I mean, we're obviously dealing with a much different president in the White House, one who has been in the crosshairs of federal prosecutors. I'm wondering, number one, can
the appealability
to Napa, we broke that. It's our exclusive story. Now it's contained in one of the counts in the federal indictment.
yes, and it just goes on and on about different trips that they took. April 6, 2022, Vappy and Cantrell traveled from New Orleans to San Francisco for Cantrell to attend an environmental law conference that began on that weekend. Apparently, there were charges, of course, made to the city of New Orleans for the travel for Vappy and Cantrell. I think they're sort of trying to establish here that the two were in a relationship, and so the two were traveling not on city business, but on personal relation.
Right. Need to look like professional business.
Yes.
And there's one line here, Cantrell lied to the reason why she needed protection on her out-of-state trips.
Now, these are things that are debatable. These are things that, unless they have direct evidence, which these messages, these 15,000 messages that the two exchanged on WhatsApp, if
Wow.
prosecutors have those messages, I think that is going to be problematic for the mayor in defending the just depending on what those messages say.
Many pages.
15,000 text messages. You can't make this up.
And her bodyguard coordinating travel so that they could be together, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yes. Now, in here, it does also mention the petition for protection from stalking or sexual assault concerning the New Orleans resident who took pictures of Cantrell and Vappy, claiming that the resident had harassed Cantrell and was risking Cantrell's safety. Then that is mentioned in here that the two just mentions that. It says that she filed a police report. Vappy was reassigned. It kind of details what has gone on throughout this federal investigation and what has happened with them. This mentions that,
Wow.
let's see, the federal grand jury investigation, it insinuates that Vappy was questioned in July of 2023 by federal investigators. That's mentioned in here about Cantrell and her protection and the protective detail that he worked for NOPD. So very interesting in here as we continue to go through this indictment.
Going to the overt acts, and that's really where the rubber meets the road. The overt acts that would have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in court. It does include, as we speculated, those charges against Vappy for wire fraud, for being on the clock, collecting city pay 4 times when the government alleges he was carrying on an affair with the mayor.
Wow.
The overt acts, the list of payments, tally up the dollar amounts that Vappy was paid for what the government alleges was not official police duties.
Yes.
We're going to have to pay that back.
In these overt acts.
Yes, and what's
And
interesting
she is
is
too.
that the public is going to find many of the things that they uncover in these messages very interesting. They're going to be of high public interest, including but not limited to the fact that it says that Vappy and Cantrell treated and these are all allegations, mind you, these have not been proven in court. This is an indictment. Again, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but this indictment does say Vappy and Cantrell treated the Pentalba apartment as their personal shared residence, with Cantrell often referring to it as our apartment when messaging Vappy. Chief Investigator David Hammer has been following this case as we have over the past several years. He's joining us now with more on this very lengthy indictment, David.
Yeah, Katie, I'm here with Matt Chester, former federal prosecutor, and we were particularly focused on the 15,000 WhatsApp messages that they exchanged because that was the subject of a question that Mayor Cantrell received when she testified before the grand jury, correct? There was, it sounds like she was saying that she produced all of those messages, all the messages that were requested by the grand jury, but that turned out to not be the case.
Yeah, we're just reading it now, obviously, but the last set of charges in here allege obstruction.
I had to give me some
false
medicine.
Statements to a grand jury.
I had to give me some
swearing out a
medicine.
false affidavit to a grand jury, and they all essentially seem to be around whether she complied with the subpoena that required her to produce all of her communications, including these WhatsApp messages with Officer Vappy.
15,000 messages they got on her and her bodyguard.
The federal government was able to get it. Obviously,
She done. And her term in January. And that's 4 hours of stuff, and we really ain't gonna be listening to that long.
Earlier today,
Here we
the federal
go.
grand jury returned an 18-count superseding indictment charging New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell and former New Orleans Police Department officer Jeffrey Paul Vappy II. They are charged with a series of fraud, obstruction of justice, and false statement offenses for their role in a nearly 3-year fraud scheme that we allege exploited their public authority and positions.
Wow.
The indictment alleges that in October of 2021, Mayor Cantrell and Jeffrey Vappy, a member of her executive protection team, developed a personal, intimate relationship. From that time until Mr. Vappy's retirement in June of 2024, they embarked on a...
This sound exactly like Fonnie Lewis Willis and Nathan Wade. Sound exactly similar, except one. Fonnie a district attorney and she's a mayor. Wow.
to defraud the city of New Orleans and the New Orleans Police Department. By exploiting Vappy's job and Cantrell's authority as mayor to have the city and police department pay Vappy's salary and expenses during the times that Vappy claimed to be on duty, but when he was actually engaged in personal activities, usually with Miss Cantrell, but sometimes alone at the Pentalba apartment. The indictment further describes the many steps that Cantrell and Vappy took to hide their scheme and to perpetuate their continued fraud, including using a secure messaging platform, WhatsApp. Specifically, Cantrell and Vappy used the WhatsApp platform to exchange over 15,000 messages, pictures, and audio clips in an 8-month period.
Wow.
They also used WhatsApp to intimidate subordinates, to harass a citizen, to lie to colleagues and associates, to delete evidence, to make false statements to FBI agents.
Oh,
To
she
give the
done.
government an affidavit signed under oath that contained numerous false statements, and ultimately to commit perjury before a federal grand jury, all for the purpose of distracting and impeding inquiries and investigations into their activities, including a federal grand jury investigation.
Wow.
The superseding indictment, which we emphasize is merely a charge for which guilt must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law, alleges that Mayor Cantrell and Mr. Vappy perpetuated their scheme both in the New Orleans area and during out-of-state trips. In both instances, Vappy's activities, while claiming to be on duty, were conspicuously different than any other member of the Executive Protection Unit. While in New Orleans, Cantrell and Vappy treated a city-owned apartment in the Pentalba building as their own personal shared residence.
Wow.
And coordinated to spend time together there, engaging in personal activities.
That's a nice word, personal activities.
For the Executive Protection Unit and was being paid to do his actual job. The superseding indictment also alleges that Mayor Cantrell and Vappy arranged for Vappy to accompany Cantrell on at least 14 domestic and international trips to maximize their time together and to engage in personal activities.
Wow, that's a
In
nice
their private
word.
text messages, Mayor Cantrell characterized her trips with Vappy as both, quote, times when we are truly alone, close quote, and as what, quote, spoils me the most. These trips included a trip to San Francisco, which Vappy and Cantrell decided to extend for an extra day so that they could visit a series of Napa Valley wineries. While Vappy was wine tasting on April the 9th, 2022, he claimed to be working and was in fact paid for working a 15-hour day.
Wow.
In August 2022, Cantrell said that she would, quote, unquote, make it happen, to have Vappy accompany her on a 3-day trip to Washington, D.C. for a 1-hour meeting. A trip that they both agreed they, quote,
He got to pay that money back, and she gonna have to pay back too. They did not learn from Fonnie Willis' downfall. They did not learn. Well, at least they did WhatsApp. but they still got the information. 15,000 texts.
Quote, needed. Shortly after they returned, Vappy described the trip to Cantrell as, quote, another leg on our journey, close quote, as he declared his love for her and their physical relationship. In total, the city of New Orleans paid over $70,000 for Vappy's travel on these trips alone. When asked about her reason for bringing members of the Executive Protection Unit with her on out-of-state trips, a practice that Mayor Cantrell began about 5 months after Vappy joined the Executive Protection Unit, she justified it as a quote-unquote pivot due to COVID and a matter of safety, in quotes. At the same time, however, she continued to take out-of-state trips without any EPU protection or Executive Protective Unit protection. In fact, on the same day, she gave one such statement. She canceled a work trip to Miami and instead traveled alone by plane, then bus, then ferry to the island of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts to spend some time with Vappy. Vappy was in Martha's Vineyard attending a conference paid for by the city of New Orleans related to his position on the Hanno Board of Commissioners, a position to which Cantrell had appointed him just months earlier. On other occasions,
Wow.
when Vappy was unavailable to accompany Cantrell on a trip, Cantrell chose not to take another member of the Executive Protection Unit with her. The superseding indictment alleges that both Vappy and Cantrell were aware that their conduct broke laws, criminal laws. For instance, in April 2022, an associate of Cantrell's explicitly told her in multiple text messages that spending public funds and using public resources for her personal relationship was illegal. When Vappy and Cantrell learned that the news media was investigating their time together in the Pentalba, they agreed amongst themselves to be, quote, unquote, straight and together. Days after the first news stories broke in November of 2022, Vappy conducted numerous online searches for New Orleans area attorneys who specialize in the practice of criminal law. And he researched WhatsApp's security features. But the defendant's wire fraud scheme nevertheless continued all the way until Vappy's retirement in June of 2024. As alleged in the superseding indictment in July 2023, the grand jury issued subpoenas to both Vappy and Cantrell, compelling the production of records. The FBI also interviewed Vappy, and during the interview, Vappy lied about the nature and circumstances of his relationship with Cantrell. In response to the subpoena, Cantrell produced a selection of responsive records, but none of the over 15,000 WhatsApp messages that she had exchanged with Vappy. Cantrell also created an affidavit, sworn under oath, that in 2021 she had activated a feature on her phone that automatically deleted messages. In support of that statement, in her affidavit, Cantrell submitted a screenshot of her iPhone showing WhatsApp messages were set to delete in 24 hours. But in fact, Cantrell did not turn on that feature until December the 26th, 2022, roughly 1 month after
She
the news media
done.
began speculating on her conduct. Moreover, this automatic deletion or quote-unquote disappearing messages feature only applied to new messages. During roughly the same period, Cantrell also manually deleted thousands of her prior WhatsApp messages with Vappy. As alleged, alleged even at the time that Cantrell responded to the grand jury subpoena, she still possessed more than 50 pictures, including screenshots of correspondence with Vappy that were responsive to the subpoena, but which she nevertheless concealed from the grand jury. On his own, Vappy conducted online searches concerning WhatsApp and its security level, and by which time several people had already warned Vappy and Cantrell that their conduct was illegal. The indictment further alleges that Vappy and Cantrell continued their pattern of obstruction through the rest of 2023 and 2024. This obstruction included improperly pressuring the interim superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department to overrule findings of an internal investigation into Vappy's conduct. When the interim superintendent did not heed that directive, Cantrell ordered the interim superintendent to nevertheless reassign Vappy back to her protection detail.
Wow.
Months later, in a meeting that Vappy attended, Mayor Cantrell informed the interim superintendent that the interim superintendent would be replaced. Similarly, when a private citizen took pictures of Mayor Cantrell and Vappy together in public, dining and consuming alcohol al fresco, while Vappy reported to be on duty, Cantrell filed a police report and sought a restraining order against that citizen.
Wow.
This indictment does not allege that a relationship constitutes a crime.
Hold on a moment.
It also does not allege that the criminal activity occurred on merely a handful of discrete days, or that the behavior was limited to a small series of discrete actions. Rather, it reflects the prosecution of two public officials alleged to have engaged in a years-long continuing fraud scheme that used public money for personal ends by exploiting their power and their authority. The superseding indictment alleges that they perpetuated that fraud scheme by taking steps to keep individuals silent, to deceive subordinates, and to obstruct investigations into their relationship, including one conducted by a federal grand jury.
Wow.
I'd like to make several things clear, if I may. First, my office remains steadfast in its commitment to rooting out public corruption in any form without fear or favor within the Eastern District of Louisiana. And by the term public corruption, I mean public officials exploiting their positions and their power for their own personal gain. Public officials should be in their jobs to serve the public and not themselves. To do otherwise is a breach of the trust that undermines the public's faith and trust in their own government. Second, this investigation remains ongoing, and I would encourage anyone with information to come forward and to do so quickly. They can do so by contacting the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at fbi.gov, submit a tip. As I close today, I wish to emphasize that our investigations and our prosecutions go wherever the evidence takes us. Today's superseding indictment is the culmination of a lengthy and a deliberate investigative process in the ultimate pursuit of justice. No decision in this case was made lightly. I'd like to recognize the dedication at this time of the career prosecutor.
Wow. I don't see how you're going to get out of that. I don't see how you're going to get out of that, Mayor.
Acting U.S. Attorney Michael Simpson actually thanked the Metropolitan Crime Commission for its help in this investigation. Our Chris Welty is live with its president, Rafael Goyeneche, right now.
Hey, Meg, yeah, we're joined by Rafael Goyeneche. He was able to look over the vast majority of that indictment, and he just wrapped up watching the Department of Justice press conference, and let's get his reaction right now. to this indictment.
Mr. Goyeneche, obviously 14 charges right now. Honestly, you turned over federal documents to the federal government. Did you think there would be this many charges?
I thought that there would be charges. I had no idea how many, because the information that the Crime Commission turned over to the government beginning in 2022 was the beginning of what we as private citizens had uncovered. I had no idea what the FBI and their partner, the United States Attorney's Office, had developed independently. So what our standard operating procedure is, if we get information about wrongdoing, we're going to refer to the appropriate agency. The appropriate agency to investigate the information that we received, we concluded, was the FBI. We made that referral in 2022. And once we make that handoff, we're out of it until they acknowledge our role and assistance. So we provided a number of tips, a lot of detailed information about the mayor and Officer Vappy, as well as some other things as well that haven't been discussed today. And today we saw the superseding indictment issued involving 18 counts.
Bam, 18 counts. You can't make this up. Mm-mm.
A little bit, but we are getting reactions from across the political spectrum at this hour. It is just before 2 o'clock, and again, we are expecting a news conference at 2:45 from the U.S. Attorney's Office, possibly involving the FBI here in New Orleans. And so we want to hear from some of these officials who are starting to comment on this situation. Mayor Latoya Cantrell indicted. She is the mayor of New Orleans, for those of you who are joining us from other parts of the country at our Tegna sister stations. But let's get to some of the reaction that has been coming in. This is from New Orleans City Council member in District E, Oliver Thomas. The announcement today reminds us of the need to let the justice system work in a fair, timely fashion and without regard to politics or preference. I'm praying for Mayor Latoya Cantrell, her family, and for all New Orleanians. Of course, Oliver Thomas dealt with his own federal investigation at one point, so he continues to say these are critical times for our city to get back on track and to stay focused on building a city that works and thrives for everyone. Let us all hope for a swift resolution to the situation that will bring.
She did not learn from Fonnie Willis. After what Fonnie Willis went through, I would have cut that relationship off. No, not until I'm out of office. Mm-mm. Nope. Dang, I got the hoopers on this. I made a mistake and put this. Wow, I shouldn't have put the hoop. Yeah, she cooked.
One of the mayor's former neighbors in the Pontalba was already
Then they interviewed
in federal court for civil rights violations. Enbro claims the mayor improperly accessed and published her confidential information, and now those claims have popped up in Cantrell's federal indictment. Amelia Strahan reports.
Between the woman who took this infamous photo and Mayor Latoya Cantrell was mentioned about half a dozen times in her indictment.
She let me know where she was, and she said, wow.
And for Bro's attorney, Justin Schmidt, it reaffirms claims made in their own lawsuit against the mayor about a year ago.
This was a confirmation to what we had suspected all along, and it kind of gave a little bit, a few more breadcrumbs.
Last May, Bro snapped a photo of Cantrell and Jeffrey Vappy eating lunch together in the quarter while he was on the clock as her bodyguard. The photo quickly sparked a bitter legal battle between Bro and Cantrell. When the photo made it to media outlets, the mayor went to police and attempted to file a restraining order. Bro filed a federal lawsuit claiming the mayor published her social security number, an old driver's license photo, and a prior domestic violence arrest that was expunged after Bro was deemed the victim.
Wow.
When we filed the lawsuit, we weren't sure exactly how the information came about.
Friday's federal indictment of Cantrell, which centers around her relationship with Vappy, doesn't list Bro by name, but alleges the mayor, quote, abused her public position to seek non-public information in support of and to obtain a temporary restraining restraining order against a New Orleans resident who photographed and shared images of Cantrell and Vappy dining and consuming alcohol together. But how Cantrell got her hands on that non-public information isn't clear.
So there's still another actor out there that we don't know who it is, whether that's Jeffrey Vappy himself, whether it's a colleague or friend of Jeffrey Vappy that he had to do it.
Schmidt says he hopes authorities will have answers soon. In New Orleans, Amelia Strahan, WWL, Louisiana.
Oh yeah, they got information. Yeah, she cooked. And you used your pot. Yeah, she cooked. Oh, I only got a few more, but I'm sure gonna stay on this. Yeah, she could. This paralegal, I love his information. I get a lot of stuff from him.
You know, helps us out. It helps me get her chooky on. We have the mayor of New Orleans.
Is happening right now as we speak, and we are learning that this indictment has been handed up. A little bit later is when we will get a copy of the indictment to find out what exactly is in there. What are the charges? It'll lay out some of the details.
We already know the charge is 14. We ain't got to listen to that. But she cooked. Damn, I say she was rigging Charles.
Now from Fox, everyone, I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us. We come back with some more breaking news that we are following for you about the mayor of New Orleans. We are learning that the New Orleans mayor, Latoya Cantrell, indicted by federal grand jury following a lengthy corruption investigation. So here is what we know of this. Mayor Latoya Cantrell of New Orleans was charged today with going to criminal lengths to carry out a cover-up of a romantic relationship with a city police officer who had been assigned to protect her, prosecutors allege. The indictment emerged after a lengthy federal investigation into corruption that has cast a shadow over Ms. Cantrell's final term as mayor, which ends in January. She and her former bodyguard, Jeffrey Vappy, faced a combined 18 felony counts, including making false statements to a grand jury.
Let me go. This is Anton Daniels. Let me go past because we already know that.
Your talent or
I want to hear what he got to say.
Was going to take you. And the worst part about it is that the people keep voting in these incompetent leaders that can't keep themselves together.
Come
Vappy
on.
was already charged over a year ago with prosecutors accusing him of defrauding taxpayers when he was paid more than $7,000 for appearing to be on duty while he was spending personal time with the mayor. Both were married at the time. The earlier indictment did not identify.
Oh, so they not married. I thought they were still married.
Mr. Vappy had carried out a relationship with the mayor of New Orleans. The charges against Ms. Cantrell add fresh turbulence to what has been a busy and complicated year for New Orleans that began with a deadly terrorist attack on New Year's Day. But the city.
Let me see if I can find some more out about her tenure in New Orleans so that we can get a better understanding of why they're coming after her in the first place. Because, again, when you get into public office and when you decide that you want to run there, it seems like a prestigious job, but they not playing no games with y'all, and they are going to hold y'all accountable.
Breaking news on WTSU.
The breaking news we're following. Sitting U.S. Mayor Latoya Cantrell accused of felony charges of conspiracy, obstruction, fraud, and essentially lying to the public, the police, and most importantly, to the federal government.
The Department of Justice says this is all in relation to an alleged romantic relationship that they say was formed between Mayor Cantrell and former New Orleans police officer Jeffrey Vappy. Mayor, any comment at all about the federal probe? Mayor Latoya Cantrell not answering or even acknowledging the questions about a federal probe. She's now facing federal charges, and she's also chucking up a first. Cantrell becomes the first.
I don't know where that came from. Sorry.
To be charged while still in office. Former Mayor Ray Nagin was indicted, went to trial, and was convicted. But while the federal investigation into Nagin started in 2008, while he was still the city's top elected leader, He wasn't charged until he was out of office. Nagin served a 10-year sentence after being convicted on bribery-related crimes. The legal process will now play out, and Cantrell is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But the charges themselves, yet another speed bump in what has been a rocky political career spanning 12 years.
Latoya Cantrell faces Dana Kaplan in a runoff to represent District B.
Cantrell won a seat on the city council in a special election back in December 2012. It's the District B seat, includes parts of Uptown Central City, the District, and Broadmoor. It previously ran for 2004. A decade flew back in 2012, with Cantrell's opponents hitting her for failing to file campaign finance reports after the
She
2004
cooked, y'all.
race.
She
That
cooked.
matter was resolved with Cantrell paying less than half of what was owed. She was re-elected to the city council in 2014 with little opposition.
And it does speak to wanting to cast that shadow over my administration.
Then in 2017, Cantrell surprised the political establishment, putting up billboards with nothing more than her name, Latoya. She announced she was running for mayor. In a crowded field, in a race for an open seat, the California native who moved to New Orleans to attend Xavier University of Louisiana ran first in the primary. During the runoff, it came to light that Cantrell had liens placed on her property for failing to pay taxes. And WDSU Investigates also broke the story on how she had used a credit card while on the council for what appeared to be personal expenses unrelated to her elected office. Cantrell
And y'all still voted for it. I'm not voting for nobody because they black. It's about policy and how it affects my pocketbook.
And the credit card issues turned into a full-blown investigation by the state's attorney general. At that time, in 2017, it was Jeff Landry, who's now the governor. After a lengthy investigation, the AG chose not to pursue charges against Cantrell, claiming that the city's policies and laws pertaining to credit card use were so vague, it would be almost impossible to prosecute.
We're going to do things with purpose.
The mayor's first term started off normal, and then the pandemic hit. She was re-elected with little real opposition in 2021, and in her second term, Cantrell has been dogged by her travel to other countries and turnover in key departments, like Public Works, and what seems to be like a never-ending battle with the city council.
So essentially what you're talking about is a woman that was never able to even manage her own finances, always had questionable issues and problems.
Exactly.
And now we're in a space to where she's getting indicted because she had a questionable relationship in which she used taxpayer dollars to make sure that she tried to cover up.
Facts.
Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon link.
Yeah, she cooked. Yeah, she cooked, baby. She cooked. Damn. Okay, I'm gonna let some of this go, but I'm gonna keep abreast on this. Now this one, okay, I'm gonna let this, yeah, we can let that go. So we only got a couple, oh yeah. I didn't know I put the Hoovers on this one. Oh no, I wanna play that one. Yeah, hold on, yeah, we're gonna do this one.
This is 27-year-old Adon
This
Montano.
is
He was a reporter
actual
that worked for
justice
Telemundo
warrior.
in Kansas City, and in February of this year, this young reporter got the assignment of a lifetime. He was actually sent down to cover the Super Bowl in New Orleans, which of course featured the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is obviously, for a guy that young, a career-defining kind of assignment.
Lozano was profiled by a Kansas City station about a year ago, talking about covering the Super Bowl.
I used to dream about it, but I never expected that it was going to come that soon.
This is something that this guy, who by the way started to get featurettes made about him, could take with him, use going forward for what promised to be a very successful career in sports journalism. However, unfortunately for Manzano, he never made it back from that assignment. Unfortunately for Manzano, he ran into a woman called Danette Colbert, and she took his life because she wanted his phone and his credit card more than she cared about his humanity, and she drugged him in order to steal from him.
27-year-old sports reporter and anchor Adon
Well, I
Manzano
don't
was
know
found
what this got to
unresponsive in a
do
hotel.
with her, so let
Guilty
me.
to intimidating a witness, second-degree battery, bank fraud, theft under
Oh,
$5,000,
wait,
and burglary.
Let me see.
ATM card, 3 separate. Eventually, you are going to put too much drugs in their booze, and they're going to die. And that's exactly what happened. And he dies.
The young Telemundo journalist and father lost his wife in a car accident last year. He was
Oh,
raising their
you know
daughter
what?
alone.
We're not
here's the
even gonna
crazy
listen
thing.
to this. Gonna be something separate. This is about the new. Oh, the judge was caught. That's something separate. I gotta keep that though. That don't have nothing to do with this. I must have thought because it's okay. So the New Orleans judge caught Regan. Okay, we're gonna talk about that, but not right now. Oh, they going over her documents. All right, come on. Okay, this is how we gonna do this.
The amount of details contained.
Yeah, look, we have a graphic. Basically, let's show you this. According to the indictment, it says that Mayor Cantrell and Jeffrey Vappy's relationship all started on a trip to Scotland. We're going to show you that. It says in or around October 2021, Vappy accompanied Cantrell to Scotland. Vappy would later reminisce in a WhatsApp message to Cantrell that the Scotland trip was quote-unquote where it all started. Again, they deny a relationship, but the feds have basically given you a 50-page indictment laying one out.
And not only that, the Scotland trip, that was just one of more than a dozen trips. The indictment alleges that Vappy accompanied the mayor on 14 trips outside of Louisiana. That includes places like Los Angeles, Orlando, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., international destinations as well. You just heard the message about the Scotland trip where it allegedly all started, all totaling about $70,000 in costs incurred just for his travel on the taxpayer dime. So as we are still combing through this indictment, I mean, it kind of puts it all into focus. Even why it was taking so long for the feds to piece it all together, once you read through this, you can see that they've done a pretty extensive job.
You just joined us, Dr. Lee. What is your initial thought? I mean, it's a historic day, unfortunately, a bad historic day. First mayor indicted, but when you read this, I mean, this is pretty salacious.
One is salacious, and two, it reflects what I use to tell my students. You cannot escape digital lipstick. And that's what you see here, where the digital crumbs in terms of using WhatsApp and technology is a footprint that can never be erased. Change phones, change service, providers, whatever, and that's what you see a lot here. The other aspect is that there was a sense of entitlement, apparently, that they would not get caught, but they continue to use devices that leave a footprint. And those footprints can never be erased. And that's what you see here.
And it's funny you should mention that, because I know, Pat, you had talked about on one page of the indictment the sense of entitlement that they wouldn't get caught. One page of the indictment talks about someone even giving a warning to the mayor about what she was doing was potentially illegal.
Yeah. Somebody texts her and writes, "It is a felony," all caps, "to have your lover be paid to work and have his travel paid for by the city. Please don't let this be your path, Latoya." And she writes back and says, she challenged the person who wrote that to prove that I'm having a relationship. And there's another potential witness counts, 1001 counts, page 34. Vappy talked to the FBI. Please don't do that. Don't talk to the FBI. That's not your friends. He talked to the FBI, and he lied to them, because he said he did not have a physical or romantic relationship with her, that he had never kissed her. You know, this stuff's going to get pretty graphic at trial. This is going to be not nice.
And if you look at this, Dr. Well, let's get back to you all really quickly, Dr. Shervin. I mean, when you read this has been out there. These reports have been out there about the mayor, a possible relationship with Jeffrey Vappy. She continues to deny it. I mean, we haven't heard from her today yet, but up until...
Honey, you can't deny it. They got your WhatsApp shit. You can't deny... Man, That's right about that digital footprint. All right, we just got this too. Let me see what this one is. Oh no no no! This is something. No 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 no.
7-year-old at Don
No, we don't want
Zano.
that. We don't. Oh, just one more, and this is it, and we done. But I'm gonna stay on it.
News from WWL Louisiana.
Well, that breaking news, New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell has pled not guilty in the federal case against her. Today's arraignment comes after an indictment last month. Breaking news covering the arraignment of Mayor Latoya Cantrell not guilty. That is her plea on all of the federal charges. She's facing wire fraud, obstruction of justice, and making full statements. This happened moments ago. We're getting live updates from our reporters.
Mayor Cantrell walked into federal court Wednesday facing multiple charges. Her demeanor was calm as she pleaded not guilty to all of them.
The mayor of New Orleans was bringing a bodyguard.
This is Nate the lawyer. It's Nate the lawyer.
Latoya Cantrell, the mayor of New Orleans. Now, she's a Democrat, and okay, I gotta keep it 100%. New Orleans is a disaster. It was the murder capital of the United States for a couple of years, and crime is out of control. It's so bad that the DA, the sitting DA in New Orleans, was recently carjacked with his mom in the car.
Sure was.
Williams and his mother are two of the latest victims of an armed carjacking, this one in the Lower Garden District. They say they were carjacked at gunpoint as Williams was helping his 78-year-old mother into her car. Your emergency.
This is District Attorney Jason Williams, and I was just carjacked at the corner of Race and Magazine Street.
Let me see what they doing.
Yes, 2 guns, 3 to 4 assailants. Get out the car, mama. Let me get my mom out the car.
So, you see how bad it is in New Orleans. Now, they were number 1 in murders in the United States for a whole bunch of years. But now they've improved. They are now number 3. Right behind St. Louis, Missouri, and Baltimore, Maryland. 2 other Democrat-run cities. Matter of fact, Democrats have a monopoly on being the murder capital of the United States because the top 10 cities in terms of the murder rate are all run by Democrats. What a surprise. Now, when it comes to Cantrell, she got into power when there was this wave of female empowerment, especially black female empowerment. You had Tiffany Henyard elected in Dalton. You had Tish James in New York, the DA in Fulton County, Fonnie Willis, and you had Cantrell, who was the first black woman ever elected to be mayor in New Orleans.
For the first time in its 300-year history, New Orleans has a female mayor. Latoya Cantrell was elected in a landslide victory with 60% of the votes. She beat another woman in the month-long runoff, which came to an end last night.
Now, as mayor, Latoya Cantrell gets police protection. Obviously, it's a big city, and she is a target. Now, one of the police officers assigned to Mayor Cantrell's protection detail is Jeffrey Vappy. And things get interesting in October of 2021 when the mayor takes a
We
trip
know
to
all
Scotland.
that. Yeah, we know all that.
New Orleans. We confirmed it was on time. The day of that 5:22 a.m. arrival back home, Vappy stayed on the clock until 12 that night.
So on Saturday and Sunday, when all he apparently did was fly in a plane from San Francisco back to New Orleans, taxpayers paid Vappy for 30 hours of work. 15 hours on Saturday, another 15 on Sunday.
So now, obviously, the overtime is extremely questionable, to say the least. Matter of fact, some would say possibly criminal. And this wasn't just happening on trips. The mayor and her bodyguard were going around the city, drinking, having a good time, all on a taxpayer dime.
July 28, 2022, NOPD officer Jeffrey Vappy at the bar of French Quarter restaurant Doris Metropolitan, his hand touching a filled wine glass. Vappy sitting next to Mayor Latoya Cantrell. The time of this picture, 8:20 p.m. According to city records, though, at this exact time, Officer Vappy was on the NOPD clock, being paid by taxpayers until 9 o'clock that night. After the MCC filed a complaint about another picture of Vappy and Cantrell eating on a French Quarter restaurant balcony. Goyeneche says the NOPD has now opened a second file on this new picture
a second investigation into Vappy. We've located a third time Vappy and Cantrell ate together. This post is coming from Instagram. February 22nd of this year, a Thursday. The mayor's schedule clear the entire day. No scheduled meetings or phone calls on her calendar. According to city records, the mayor didn't send one work-related email or text message that day. At lunchtime, she showed up to the restaurant Company Burger on Ferret with Officer Vappy eating together outside. That day, Vappy billed taxpayers for 12 hours of work, including during the time he ate with the mayor.
So now, people, I'm going to tell you, this isn't enough to show that she's sleeping with the guy. Is it enough to show that there's an issue with the overtime? Yes, but it's not enough to show she's sleeping with the guy. So what did the feds do? They got their text messages, and that's when the bomb exploded.
And to perpetuate their continued fraud, including using a secure messaging platform, WhatsApp. Specifically, Cantrell and Vappy used the WhatsApp platform to exchange over 15,000 messages, pictures, and audio.
Yeah, we see heard
$30,000
that.
just for Vappy's travel expenses, separate from Mayor.
Yeah, Mayor Cantrell look like you cook, baby. But I'm gonna keep up because I'm sure gonna watch this trial. Yes, I am. Yes, I am, and I'll keep y'all updated. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Yeah, she cooked. They're going to have to pay back all that money.